We have a panel on EMV, and it's how merchants can prepare for the EMV evolution or revolution, but it's titled Evolution, and it really is more of an evolution. And I'm going to introduce our panelists, let them speak in one moment. I wanted to give a few statistics that were floating around. There's an article in Payment Source about how EMV is not particularly a great security thing. And you can see a lot of stats, some of which were presented yesterday by one of our keynote speakers. The first thing, and this will kind of give my predilection, a $1 billion U.S. retailer, so $1 billion of annual volume, can expect $975,000 per year of fraud. I would note that sounds like a lot, but it's under 1% of his revenue. IHL expects EMV to cost $35 billion to deploy. They don't say where, but I would assume that's the United States. From there, we have adoption in Europe of EMV of 83% plus, but in the US, and yesterday we saw a lower stat, but IHL says it's 7%. And by the way, to go back, and these aren't in particular order, US retailers should expect $10 billion of fraud this year, or they had it last year, out of $5.5 trillion of card spending. So again, that gives you an idea. That said, one other stat, or quickly, Javelin, who's got a new report out, says that card not present fraud will increase by 100% in the year following EMV adoption in the United States. Obviously, fraud won't drop by 100%, but I would note the stat from earlier, 94% of transactions are still at Sears. They're a big company. And other companies and offline, rather than online at Amazon or the other places where I love to shop also. I do have a Sears card. I do shop at Sears once in a while. That said, we have three panelists with us today. We have Jason from Net Clearance, Greg Birch from Ingenico, and Peter Lin, who's on the far end from Sears Holdings. And I'll let each one of them introduce themselves and give us a couple minutes on their company, what their companies do, and then we'll get into the topics. So Peter, you're the furthest from me, so if you don't mind, I'll let you go first.
My name is Peter Lin. I am in charge of the solution architect team in Sears Member Technologies Group. And our group deals with the request from retail operations, online operations, kiosks, mobiles, and phone. So any requests, any features that are used by our associates in the stores or by our customers on their mobile devices, our team will develop solutions for that.
I'm Jason Applin with Net Clearance, and we make beacons, payment gateways, proximity marketing. We're based in San Diego, California, and we serve, well, 90% of our business is actually outside of the United States. You've seen our booth over here that I've been speaking from. We don't really deal with EMV, we deal with tokenization, and the country of Denmark is our largest client, doing that all over Europe. We're fully integrated with every retailer over there in Denmark. We're moving to Norway, Sweden, and Finland. We deal with banks and B2Cs, proudly partnered with Unipagos in Mexico, with our solutions with PepsiCo and vending machines there, mobile wallets, etc.
Hi, I'm Greg Birch with Ingenico Group. We're the world's largest manufacturer of EMV compliant or compatible hardware. We also have divisions that enable mobile payments through small dongles that you can attach to tablets and phones. And we also have a payment services division that throughout Europe and the CEPA regions allows merchants to connect with various acquirers. And I'm in charge of the business mobility strategy for the US as well as business development.
Cool. And just quickly, I'm Larry Berlin, and I'm with First Analysis here in Chicago. I provide research to the mutual funds that hopefully you guys are invested in on the payment space, includes Fidelity. And I also do venture capital, and we're on our 12th fund. And we just sold TrustWave, which is most relevant towards this conversation. 2 nights ago it closed. So we're out of that, I guess, as soon as the check comes, or ACH payment, I should say. That said, EMV is finally coming. It's October 1st, in about 29 days or so. What do you guys think it actually is coming? Are people adopting? What are you seeing in the adoption cycle as we go forwards? And what do you see between the different segments, between the merchant or the restaurant or the convenience store or whatever coming across in the United States? And we'll get to international in a moment.
I can start. So at Ingenico, we've actually already enabled a lot of the large brand merchants to have EMV. You may not see it yet when you go in the store just because they haven't flipped the switch, but it's actually dormant in a lot of the big box retailers now waiting to be turned on. Some of you probably already have experienced it if you've gotten your cards and you went to swipe and you saw the insert card pop up and wondered what that was. So it's out there. A lot of the big box merchants, one of the big challenges for them is the operational impact. So training their teams what to say to customers when you see that prompt before they turn it on. And then we also see growing rapidly in the small SMB space because we provide a product that's fully enclosed, and the major processors can simply send that out to a small mom and pop merchant. And in many cases, those have been rolling out for the past 6 to 8 months already with EMV inside it, and it just takes a little switch. So at some point when the processors feel they're ready, they'll send a little note out to their small merchants saying that your device is going to reboot overnight, and when it comes on the next morning, it's going to have EMV, and this is what it means to you. So the technology is actually already permeating its way out there. I think to your point about the gap where we see a lot of work being done is the mid-sized merchants. They have very sophisticated systems, and those systems are in various stages of certification right now. So there's a lot of work to certify all that, all those systems, and make sure also that they're being PCI compliant. So figuring all that out is what's happening pretty rapidly now.
Jason, any thoughts? And I will expand to international for a moment before we go to Peter. What could we learn from international also as we roll it out here in the United States?
Well, what's occurred at Danske Bank is very unique, and it literally took an entire focused view of a country to change the system, to change the manner in which things are being done. You know, obviously, the maturity of the customer and the maturity of the environment is what drives what happens in Northern Scandinavia and Europe. But Danske Bank is very unique because they are the bank, they are the mobile wallet, they are the processor, and they had trained their entire population to actually interact on a mobile phone in a P2P environment. When it came time to do it in B2C, people naturally said, okay, now we're going to do this, and there was just continuing a swipe right scenario for payment. However, what's interesting is that they have removed the processor from the country. So the bank now clears. And they're also moving this into other scenarios because Europe is such a congress of social contracts. When people interact with their mobile phones or with their payments, they're no longer limited by the cash that they carry. So what's happening is that they're moving into other countries with their solution because their cards are used in other countries. And with the P&L line being added to their bank line for processing, for clearing, it's really something interesting to witness. It's really an industry change. It's not, oh, by the way, we don't use cash, which is amazing to say in our time. It's, we're now going to change the industry and the way things are going. And so banks and other countries have contacted us and said, we need this solution as well. So it's fun to watch, but you know, Paul and I were talking about this from Unipagos, and you know, America is just going to fight at the current level it's at, and all the big boys are just fighting right now, trying to get a position, trying to get a solution. It's far much more convenient to do things outside the United States and get innovative and get results.
Interesting. And we are coming back to that in a moment. Peter would love to hear the Sears experience. Are you rolled out, and well, how do you view the general markets rather than, because Peter is limited, we all limited by general counsels on what we're allowed to say, including me, and so he may talk general, so feel free.
Yeah, first I want to echo what Greg said. Sears, just like other merchants, we are facing with a lot of operational preparation tasks that we have to undertake before we roll out EMV. Simple things like, instead of swiping, now you have to insert the credit card. And things like reminding the customers to remove the card from the slot. And that is just such a simple thing. But this is such a deeply rooted habits by our shoppers. It does not change overnight. So we need to be operationally prepared how to handle those forgotten cards, And especially the holiday season is around the corner, This is the things that we have to be concerned about and be prepared for. Other things I want to mention also for our merchant colleagues, that is EMV is very safe, it's secure, it's a good thing. Operationally, it also takes a little bit longer time and at checkout line. And as you can imagine, around holiday time, every second counts. So these are the things that we all have to be aware of, and perhaps some merchants may decide to set up a few more checkout lines to handle additional traffic, to take into consideration that the checkout time may increase a little bit. The other thing I want to share with our retailer colleagues is, as Larry mentioned, those criminals, they do not go away. And when they notice that the EMV is rolled out in the store, they will try to bring their crime to places such as online. So the card not present transactions may experience a spike of fraudulent attempts. So that's other things that retailers need to be prepared for, because I think most retailers, if not all, have not just a brick and mortar presence, but they also have online presence. And while EMV addresses security in the store, but we also need to be aware and be prepared for the potential increase of fraud online. So that is something I want to share with you.
Cool. Let me ask for you guys, and this comes out of Peter's comments, are the retailers yet, and Greg and Jason, you might have more insight to this, are they looking at this as an omni-channel thing in terms of not just online, offline, mobile, but in terms of, and everyone says that EMV is going to lead to adoption of NFC. Are the retailers looking at it that way, or are they just looking at this as a point problem, they've got to meet the October 1st thing, or Visa's going to hurt them? And how does it differ between the larger retailer and the smaller retailer and the middle-sized retailer?
So certainly something that we're seeing is, I'll start with the smaller retailer, because what the processors are requesting of us is that the small merchant gets an all-in-one package. Everything's in there, so they are addressing, if they're gonna take the time to upgrade, it needs to have everything addressed. So PCI, mobile wallet acceptance, that includes NFC, and then EMV on board. In the big brands, when they come to us for hardware, they look for the same thing. This is one of the items to take into account is it's a pretty big purchase decision if you have to upgrade the hardware at every lane across the nation for you. So this is huge. So they definitely want to get the most out of it. And so they're kind of staging their projects based on how the IT infrastructure is and the POS system capabilities to really address all of those items. So just how it lines up with them. And a lot of the merchants are different from each other. They're all unique. For some, it could be that EMV is priority one because October's approaching. Actually, when I think about it, most of them, PCI is probably number one on their list. Are they encrypting the card data securely? And if they're not, that's usually the top item. generally speaking, and then EMV follows after that, and then mobile wallets are close behind.
John, Peter, or Jason, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. I want to say that the security is not a point solution just for brick and mortar operation. Rather, we take it a 360-degree view, because a lot of our transactions may start online. People do research about a Kenmore refrigerator, and then during the day they may continue their research on their mobile, and then in office they may do continuous checking and comparison, and then after work they may stop by in a nearby Sears store and really touch and feel how the refrigerator or the washer dryer works, and also talk with the experienced sales associates, ask for their opinion. So it is really a multi-channel, omni-channel, we call it integrated retail experience. So when we talk about security, the security has to be for all channels, all touch points of a particular shopper. And as I mentioned before, EMV is great. It is secure for contact payment when you are in the store. However, someone may, as I said, make a payment for a purchase online, at home, or on the mobile. And how do we secure that operation and the transaction? That is the challenge I share with all our colleagues from the payment industry. So please come up with innovative solutions that are not only secure, but also cost-effective, does not require our merchants to upgrade our hardware every few years, or do a significant software upgrade, or do significant training. So if you can make it cost-effective for the retailers, that would be very good. And lastly, also want the solution to be very user-friendly, because as you know, purchasing an item is not just a transaction. We view this as an important user experience. So we want to make the user experience as pleasant as possible, as compelling as possible, and that the customers do not have to remember a lot of passwords or codes, do not have to wait in line for a long time, and so make the user experience fast, make it convenient for our customers.
Yeah, for this conversation of security, the uniqueness of having a European client in a relationship of security, it went from having the safeness of EMV, but then they moved all of the client records and the merchant records into the bank. And so the bank is the actual center now of holding all the information behind like their 15 or 20 firewalls. And then the tokenization that's issued, random codes based upon the purchasing history, they'll act immediately on both sides. So you'll see the vendor and the actual mobile wallet communicating in real time, and the purchase occurring in 5 seconds with just a single swipe. But you can choose any card, any method of payment. That's where Europe is, and that's where it's going. But here in the States, EMV is very, very necessary because, well, you quoted the fraud rates, it's the necessary mid-step. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to get to the last steps, trust me, in a few minutes, because the last question is where are we going? So, just to give you a tip. So, let me ask you, now, are there issues, and the merchants probably are more interested in this, there's large issues between credit, debit, probably prepaid if you have to do that on EMV, and then between the types of merchants, restaurants have a whole nother set of issues, gas stations are a whole nother set of issues. How do we begin to deal with them, or how does the merchant begin to deal with them? And do they generally have extra time beyond October 1st, or is the gas station kind of hurt?
So the gas stations for fuel dispensers, where that's a pretty major impact to swap out a fuel dispenser and upgrade to EMV, they have till 2017. So there's extra time there. Most of the convenience stores are actually upgrading in that convenience store area with something that's EMV compatible.
read somewhere that some gas station operators, they're also looking actively at mobile payments because of the obvious cost of upgrading their infrastructure. But we're thinking if mobile payment can securely do the transaction, and that way they may save on the cost and still meet the security requirements. So there's different alternatives that are being kind of evaluated right now.
Yeah, so in Denmark, everybody, our partner over there, Guapify, everyone in the country, coffee houses, restaurants, gasoline stations, I mean, they're all getting that little device that we have. And so whenever you see it, it's as easy as seeing like a Visa or a MasterCard symbol. So they literally just, I mean, it's transacting everywhere. So, yeah.
And of course, they don't tip in Denmark, so I'm kidding. So it helps, it makes it easier. Since we are pushing towards it, let's step ahead a little bit. As you said, in a couple of the panels we had yesterday and today, people were talking about how EMV, including the one 2 panels ago, EMV really is a stepping stone in a lot of ways towards mobile payment, towards Apple Pay or Samsung, Google Pay or whatever. Do you guys view it that way? Do you see EMV or chip and signature in the U.S. as a sort of a halfway house?
We actually see it as a complement. Something we get asked a lot, our opinion on which will win out, mobile payments or EMV. And something to remember is EMV is a global standard. So all of the card brands have agreed on how it should work. And it's a standard that's published and been out for a couple of decades. Mobile wallet is competitive. So all the different players are really beating each other up right now, and there is not a standard for it. So what the mobile wallets have, the major players have agreed is for devices and systems that are EMV ready, it actually runs on the EMV rails. So in that way, it is a complement. So as you walk into a store and you're using your phone and you're tapping, it's going to, if EMV is not on, it's going to be a backstripe sale. If EMV is enabled, it's going to be an EMV NFC transaction.
Yeah, I agree with what Greg just shared. I don't think it's either or. It could coexist at least for a period of time. And I have seen some vendors out there that have accessories for mobile point of sales that can take Master credit card as well as EMV credit card. I think Ingenico even has a device roam, but yeah, and that can do both. So you can get the safety and the security of EMV, and you can still do, support the mobile payment in the future. So.
Yes, I concur as well. With all of the vendors that we're participating with and all of the retailers, you're seeing the EMV machine, and then you're seeing our box sitting next to it. And we have a new partner that we're talking to in northern Scandinavia. Their company is called Next, and Next is an Ingenico provider. And their clients are saying, how do we get the box? And they're doing literally the exact same scenario where we're on your rails. And the deployments are literally hand in hand. Yeah. So I don't think there's ever going to be one ring to rule them all, right? But there is going to be a balance of security within the two choices. Yeah.
Good reference, Frodo. I caught that. And that would lead to the question of at what point does, we all have tokenization, and I realize it's part of Apple Pay, et cetera. Does tokenization then also ride the same rails, and does tokenization complement EMV?
So that's really interesting because the mobile wallet is really going to determine where that goes. So with Apple iPay, you're paying the credit card fee, and you're also paying 0.15 to 0.20 to Apple for every transaction, right? And that really is kind of the hurdle for most people that want to pay with that level of convenience and confidence. So the mobile wallet now moves in, and the mobile wallet has a clearing fee of 1.5%. And that's the only fee you pay if you don't use the credit card. So that's the case in Denmark, that's the case with working with other mobile wallets in other countries, and that's also the case of working with Unipagos. So it starts at 1.5 and it goes down with the amount of transactions that go up. And so that's really the driving force when it comes to choosing the wallet.
So does that get funded by, in the US, would that be funded by ACH and debit card and Durbin-controlled pricing?
You know, it's funny, we've had our arms literally open wide, waiting for that embrace of who wants to play in the States, and everybody's still kind of toe in the water tapping it because they're looking at what's happened with Apple iPay. There's 7% adoption, but then they've already been hacked with disposable phones, so everybody's just still playing it lightly. But I will say that some of the processor companies are talking, and they're saying, okay, how do we remain relevant in our global ops? You know?
Interesting. Let me ask you, how does PCI come into all this? If I'm EMV, am I also PCI compliant automatically, or where does the data reside? I know we began to address that a few questions ago, but where does PCI come in? Because that's been a big thing for all your budgets, no doubt.
PCI compliance is something that we have been working on for a long time, and I think we will continue working on. And there are different initiatives, like tokenization could be one, and so I think this is an ongoing effort on the part of the merchants, and so it's not going to stop because, oh, we have EMV now, so we can take a step back and rest. So we're going to continue on that.
Yeah, I think so most of our customers, they're looking at both, and they are sometimes, I shouldn't say separate initiatives because they are so close to each other, but when you accept EMV cards, PCI still wants to look at how is that data being transmitted in flight, and then also where is that data being stored? Is it being stored securely? Is it being encrypted? Is it being tokenized? So all that will still be evaluated.
I would say once you have tokenization, then the data becomes useless basically until you go behind the firewall. So does everybody understand tokenization? Because it took me a long time to understand even a little touch of it. I just want to make sure while we have the experts here who can explain it. So everyone need a primer on it? Okay, so then we move on. Okay, great. Now the next question I'm addressing, anyone have any questions before I go to my next questions? Because we're happy to take some. Please.
Hi, you mentioned, mobile, especially at the gas station. However, there are companies like Speedway, and I know this from talking to people at Speedway. Their whole goal is to get you from the gas station into the convenience store because that's where the markups are. So how do you balance, I guess, wanting to do mobile, wanting to do quickly with companies such as that they want you in the store to sell you the high margin goods?
I think it's a very delicate balancing act because ultimately you want to serve your customer and let them pay in the way they want to pay. I think a lot of our merchants feel fundamentally that's what they want to do, is not add any friction to it. We do have some partners that are considering in the pump area using multimedia as a way to help allow people to pay easily, but then also incent folks and let them know that there's a reason to come in the store. So that's what we're seeing, how to balance that out, still make it easy, but then try to get folks in using multimedia advertisements at the pump.
Yeah, I agree. We have two different types of beacon gateways that we use. One that is the payment gateway, the M2. We also have proximity marketing with our M3. So you can actually get the Wi-Fi. You can get the coupon that says do this now and it's timed, and you can redeem it at the actual register. And we can sell and shove people into the process of purchasing with that incentive, and we can tell if that happens. That's how we're dealing with that because of the requests. But yeah, I mean that's the goal of every gas merchant or any business to actually have immediate ROI on an effort of contact. Yeah.
Peter, given that Sears is a little bit different, someone's not just running in, filling up gas and running out, but I'm coming in and I'm buying some clothes and maybe a Kenmore washer at the same time. How do you guys view the issues, and do you see this as a chance of another contact and with your customer and a way to help them out and help them through and do what gas stations seem to be doing?
Yeah, our view of our customers are, we view them as members. We welcome them back every month, or sometimes even more frequently as in our Kmart stores. And we want them to shop the way they want it. And we want them to pay the way they want it. We are here to serve our members. So that's why we do not want to limit the alternatives, how they are going to pay for this.
And sort of related question, I guess, how do you educate the customer for EMV? Obviously, you said at the beginning you can educate your cashier, but how do you educate me when I walk in and I use my Discover card and it's EMV compliant so that I know what the heck I'm doing and don't leave it behind?
I think it's a combination of education, training, and messaging. So signage is going to be very important to remind both the associates as well as shoppers to remember to insert instead of swiping, and also to remember to take the card away after the transaction. Also, we're trying to build in features in the software that unless you remove the card, certain step you cannot take. That way will keep you kind of so to basically remind the shopper to remove the card before they can take the next step.
I wish the restaurant I was at last week had that. So that's the way it goes. Greg and Jason, what are you guys seeing in terms of education of the customer and getting us to move forwards?
So, especially in the checkout lane, you have very little time, and you want people to be able to pay and then to be able to move on. So you have to be careful. We do see merchants getting very succinct in their messaging and making sure that just in a few words or a sentence that it becomes clear that this is about protecting people's identity. So allow people to understand what the benefit is and that there's a reason for this, not that it's just happening and it's a burden. There's a plus for it.
Yeah, so we are unique in the sense that we are mobile already, so we don't deal with the poke and pull. We kind of go past that, we just go for the swipe, so that's as much as I can add on that one.
Okay, let me ask you, and this was on my list of questions, do you see, besides the obvious, Genico or Fiserv, as they make more cards, things like that, do you see an obvious winner, or the merchant obviously wins because they reduce fraud, assumedly, maybe it's not so obvious, but do you see a winner or a loser in the space as we move into the next couple of years in the United States? A company or a sector that you think just benefits more or gets pounded more than others because we've gone EMV? It's a tough one.
So I think something we've seen in other countries is one of the major benefactors of this eventually will be restaurants. Fraud is very high in restaurants where today you put your card down on the billfold and it gets taken away. And a lot of fraud occurs through little swipers that, servers, if you look at the profile of them, they're often just getting by, maybe they're a student or what have you, and so their profile is they are accessible to people who want to pay them like $1,500 to fill up a little swiper with cards at the end of the day. So we see a lot of restaurants worldwide have started taking little mobile devices to the table, swipe it at the table or insert it at the table, and potentially even collect PIN. You'll start to see an increase of that through next year. So restaurants we see really will benefit. That's what we've seen in other countries, because that fraud will be eliminated. That's from taking the card.
It's cool. Of course, that means the consumer benefits because
Exactly.
my waiter or waitress doesn't have my IDs and my 3-digit CCV code and things.
Restaurants for us really took off. So we were in the sandbox with McDonald's over in Denmark in 3 weeks.
That's right.
And then when they actually deployed the solution in all of their restaurants in the entire country. And in the very first week, 1% of their annual sales was achieved in the first week of the actual mobile wallet. So small companies, large companies, everybody, it's just a 5-second turn on it. So we see restaurants as being the big opportunity here in the States.
Peter, do you see someone who's going to benefit besides your provider of the services?
I think the banks will benefit.
Okay. That's not a bad thing. We like banks. So,
And I really want to remind the payment industry, so please come up with innovative solutions to help merchants like us to make the online transaction or multi-channel transactions more secure. And because right now, if it's card not present, if there's a fraud, I think a lot of merchants are on the hook to pay for the loss or at least part of the loss. And so if there is some solution that can reduce the online fraud, card not present fraud, leveraging the EMV technologies or mobile technologies, I think that will help the retail industry a lot. So I think there's a lot of brilliant minds in the payment industry. So I encourage you to work with merchants to develop new innovative solutions that are secure, cost-effective, and convenient.
that actually kind of jumps to my last question because we're nearing lunch here, which is, do you have advice for the merchant going forward, something that you would just say do or don't do as we go through the next few months?
So something that we've seen just from EMV launching in other countries, we have seen merchants that have decided they don't think EMV, that they'll just ride the liability and they'll take it on and they will pay it. And they've done calculations on it and they feel that they're covered by it. And what we found those merchants learn is, especially in Canada, for the card holder, once the card holder realized and associated the chip card with protecting their identity, merchants realized this could harm their brand. And it became more about associating the brand with security than anything about compliance. That was all secondary suddenly to protecting the brand. So I would say be very aware of that. What is your brand identity and how are your merchants, what type of merchants do you have and kind of how are they feeling about this? That's one. Another thing I would say is, so right now, most of the cards being issued are signature based. We expect that will start to change going into next year, that cards being issued, this was kind of a first step and Visa was one of the strongest ones to say, let's just get them out there. But you're going to start seeing the issuance of cards with PIN start to accelerate as we go into 2016, so just be aware of that. A lot of merchants will come in with cards that have PINs attached to them.
Just like here's one thing, if they go to chip and PIN from rather than chip and signature, do they have to then reissue me my card? Will
That's a good
Citibank
question.
River? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I've just had all this wonderful mail from Citibank and Bank America with new cards.
Theoretically, they shouldn't have to. So the card, as you guys may know, it's a microprocessor. It's a small computer. So the computer is completely reprogrammable, and it's part of the power of it is whenever there's a fraud detected, the whole system, every time you use it, it can get reprogrammed with new rules. So conceivably, they could just reprogram it.
Okay. And Jason, you?
Yeah, so we get requests now for really granular, detailed understandings and actions and lifestyle of the client. So one of our partners, Jeff at GeoCommerce, they have a very unique, granular understanding of client actions from tremendously large amounts of data and disparate points. And then partnering with them in Clutch, we're getting this entire colorful footprint and lifestyle understanding of the individuals that are now walking and interacting with commerce and with retail and with mobile wallets and payments. So most of our clients now are saying we want to have that full circle, and we can only do it by working and collaborating together. So, yeah.
And Peter, I will leave you with the last word.
Thank you very much. I want to say mobile payment conference is a really great venue to discuss such topics because it is a confluence of fast-changing technologies in mobile, as well as the changing nature of payment. And so I really want to thank the organizer of MPC for this opportunity to get us all together in one place. And I just want to leave you with this thought that EMV is just one step in the direction toward more secure payment. Certainly it's not the end. And retail industry, vendors, and the payment industry and banks should work closely together to develop more innovative, secure, cost-effective, and user-friendly solutions down the road. And I look forward to seeing more such solutions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending and listening to us, and I'd like to thank Greg, Jason, and Peter for joining us. And like Peter, I'd like to echo him and thank MPC for having us up here.
Thank you, Marlon.